Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab. Now, let's begin. The morning started like any other Tuesday. Brian Tucker cracked 3 eggs into a bowl while his 6-year-old son, Matt, sat at the kitchen table tracing letters in his workbook. The kid had been quieter than usual lately, but Brian chalked it up to first-grade jitters. Matt was sensitive, always had been. The type who cried at sad commercials and brought wounded insects inside to heal them. "Dad," Matt's small voice barely carried across the kitchen. "Yeah, buddy. Do I have to go to Grandma and Grandpa's today?" Brian glanced over his shoulder. Matt's pencil hovered above the page, his hazel eyes, so much like Brian's own, fixed downward. "Just for a few hours. I've got that client meeting in Riverside, remember? Can't take you with me this time. Can't I stay with Mr. Wade instead?" Wade Schaefer had been Brian's best friend since college, now working as a freelance photographer from his home studio 2 blocks over. Matt loved visiting Wade's place, fascinated by the cameras and lighting equipment. But Wade had mentioned a shoot scheduled for today. Mr. Wade's working sport. Besides, Grandma said she's making your favorite cookies. Matt's grip tightened on the pencil. "Daddy, please. I don't want to go there." Brian turned fully now, spatula in hand. "What's wrong? Did something happen last time?" The boy's face scrunched up, that telltale sign of tears forming. Grandpa gets mad when I cry, and Grandma says I'm too soft. They make me do things, and it hurts, and... Whoa. Brian crossed to the table, kneeling beside his son's chair. He kept his voice level despite the sudden spike of concern. "What kind of things?" Matt shook his head rapidly, curls bouncing. "I can't say. They told me it's a secret. They said if I tell, something bad will happen." Brian felt his jaw tighten. Cassie's parents had always been strict, ex-military types who ran their household like a barracks. Clint Pena especially had strong opinions about soft parenting, often making pointed comments about how Brian was coddling Matt. But threats? Secrets? "Matt, look at me." Brian waited until his son's wet eyes met his. "You could tell me anything. Always. No secret is more important than your safety." The boy's lip trembled. "They'll know. Mommy told them I've been complaining. They said next time will be worse if I keep being a baby about it." A cold sensation crawled up Brian's spine. "Mommy knows about this?" Matt nodded, tears finally spilling over. "She says Grandpa's way works, that you don't understand because your family was too easy on you." Brian pulled his son into a hug, mind racing. Cassie had been spending more time at her parents' place lately, often taking Matt with her for family bonding. When Brian objected to the frequency, she'd accused him of trying to isolate her from her family. The arguments had grown heated enough that they'd agreed to marriage counseling starting next month. But this was different. "Okay," Brian said quietly, pulling back to look at Matt. "Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take you to Grandma's like normal. But I want you to know something, buddy. I'm going to fix this. Whatever's happening, it stops today. Can you be brave for just a little while longer?" Matt wiped his nose on his sleeve. "You promise you'll come back quick?" "I promise." Brian stood, his mind already formulating a plan. "Go get dressed. Wear your favorite shirt, the one with the dinosaur." As Matt scurried upstairs, Brian pulled out his phone and called Wade. "Little early for you," Wade's gravelly voice answered. "Need a favor. Can you cancel your shoot today? Already postponed it. Sunrise was too overcast anyway." "What's up?" Brian kept his voice low. "Something's wrong with Matt. He's terrified of going to Cassie's parents' place. Says they hurt him, make him keep secrets. Cassie apparently knows and approves." Silence on the other end, then, "Jesus, Brian, what do you need?" "I'm going to drop him off, but I'm not leaving. I need you to bring your car and meet me 2 blocks from their house. Park where you can see their driveway. Bring your telephoto lens, the one you use for wildlife. You're surveilling your in-laws. My son told me they hurt him, Wade. Cassie's covering it up. I need to know what the hell is happening in that house. Give me 20 minutes. The Pena residence sat on a corner lot in a neighborhood that tried hard to look upscale. Clint and Lynn had bought the place after Clint retired from 26 years as a drill instructor at Parris Island. The lawn was manicured to military precision, the driveway lined with white stones arranged in perfect formation. Even the mailbox stood at exactly 90 degrees to the street. Brian pulled his truck up to the curb, feeling Matt tense in the passenger seat. "Remember," Brian said softly, "I'm not really leaving. I'll be close by." Matt nodded, face pale. They walked to the front door together. Before Brian could knock, it swung open. Lynn Pena stood there in her usual uniform of pressed khakis and a polo shirt, her silver hair in a tight bun. Everything about her posture screamed rigid control. "Right on time," she said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Brian, I thought you'd just drop him at the curb like usual. Wanted to say a proper hello." Brian kept his tone light. "How've you been, Lynn?" "Fine." Clint's in the garage organizing his tools. "You know how he is. Everything has its place." She reached for Matt's hand. The boy flinched but didn't pull away. "Come on, Matthew. We have a special day planned." Brian noticed his son's shoulders hunch at the word special. "What time should I pick him up?" "Cassie will be here around 4. She can bring him home with her." Lynn's fingers wrapped around Matt's wrist. "Say goodbye to your father." "Bye, Dad," Matt whispered. Brian forced himself to turn away, to walk back to his truck to start the engine. Through the rearview mirror, he watched Lynn pull Matt inside and close the door. Then he drove exactly 2 blocks, turned left, circled back through an alley, and parked behind Wade's silver sedan tucked between 2 overgrown oleander bushes. Wade had the telephoto lens already mounted on his Canon, aimed at the Pena house. "Got here 5 minutes ago. Nothing yet, except your mother-in-law closing the front door." Brian checked his watch. 9:47 a.m. "Matt said they wait until I'm gone." "What exactly are we looking for?" "I don't know, but I'll know it when I see it." They waited in tense silence, Wade occasionally adjusting his lens. At 10:03, the garage door began to rise with a mechanical groan. Clint Pena emerged, his barrel chest straining against a black t-shirt, gray crew cut catching the morning sun. He looked around the yard once, twice, then walked back into the darkness of the garage. "That's weird," Wade muttered. "Why open it just to go back in?" "He's checking if I'm really gone." Another minute passed. Then Clint reappeared, dragging, no, not dragging, gripping Matt by the upper arm with one meaty hand. The boy's feet barely touched the ground as Clint hauled him into the garage. Even from a distance, Brian could see his son's body rigid with fear. "Go," Wade said urgently. But Brian was already moving, shoving the truck door open and sprinting across the yards. His dress, shoes pounded against concrete, lungs burning. The Pena's back gate stood unlocked. Foolish for people so obsessed with control. Brian vaulted it, landing hard, charging toward the side entrance to the garage. Through the small window, he caught a glimpse of Matt's face, twisted in silent terror. Brian didn't knock. He grabbed the door handle and turned, expecting resistance. It gave way easily, another mistake. He burst through into the harsh fluorescent light of the garage. The scene before him struck like a physical blow. Matt stood in the center of the concrete floor, arms extended straight out from his sides, parallel to the ground. His small hands held paint cans, one in each palm. His whole body shook from the effort, tears streaming down his red face. But it was the contraption around his neck that made Brian's vision blur with rage, a leather collar attached to a pole, adjustable so that if Matt lowered his arms, the collar would tighten and force him up on his toes. Clint stood 3 feet away, stopwatch in hand, barking, 22 minutes. "You'll hold it for 30 or we start over." "Stop crying." Tears are weakness leaving the body. And there, in the corner, Cassie sat on a folding chair with her phone raised, filming everything. The screen showed a clear view of Matt's anguished face, the timer running in the corner of the frame. She saw Brian first. Her expression didn't change. No guilt, no surprise. Just a calm, measured assessment. "Honey," she said evenly, "you're not supposed to see this yet." Brian's knees buckled. He caught himself against the doorframe, hand flying to his mouth. The full horror of it washed over him. This wasn't new. This wasn't the first time. The casual way Cassie held the phone, Clint's practice timing, Lynn now appearing from the kitchen door with a notebook. This was routine for them. "Get him out of that," Brian heard himself say, voice shaking. "Right now." Clint didn't move. "This is family business, son. You need to leave before." Get him out. The roar surprised even Brian. Clint took a step back, startled by the explosion from the man he'd always dismissed as too soft, too weak. Brian crossed the garage in 3 strides, reaching for the collar mechanism. Brian, stop. Cassie was on her feet. You don't understand what we're doing here. This is for Matt's own good. He's too sensitive, too emotional. We're building his resilience, You're torturing a 6-year-old child. Brian's hands found a release on the collar. It clicked open and Matt collapsed forward. Brian caught him, scooping him up, feeling the boy's racing heartbeat against his chest. My son. My child. Our child, Cassie corrected, but her voice had gone cold now. Calculating. And you're making a mistake. Matt needs this. Your father was too lenient with you, and look how you turned out. Can't handle conflict, afraid to discipline, letting your son grow up weak. Brian stared at the woman he'd married 5 years ago, the woman he'd thought he knew. How long has this been happening? 6 months, Clint answered, still holding his stopwatch. Started with small exercises. He's progressed slower than most, but that's your genetics. Takes after your side. Most. Brian's arms tightened around Matt. There are others? Lynn stepped forward, notebook in hand. We're in a program, Brian. Parents who understand that modern parenting has failed. Children need discipline, structure, the kind of hardship that builds character. We document the process, show the transformation. Matt's footage will help convince other families that this works. This is insane. Brian backed toward the door. I'm taking my son and we're leaving. Stay away from us. You're not taking him anywhere. Cassie moved to block the door, phone still in hand. I have custody too. And once I show this footage to a judge, once they see you storming in here and disrupting a legitimate disciplinary session, once our lawyers explain how you're unfit. Lawyers? Brian almost laughed. You think this is about lawyers? You filmed yourself torturing a child. Multiple children, apparently. You think that footage helps your case? The footage shows a proven methodology, Clint said. We have testimonials from 23 families. Children who are bedwetters, crybabies, discipline problems. Now, they're straight-A students, athletes, leaders. We have the data. Brian shook his head, still backing up. Matt's face buried in his shoulder. Wade, he called out, knowing his friend was still outside with the camera. You getting all this? Cassie's face paled. You brought someone else? Telephoto lens, high-definition recording. Got Clint dragging Matt into the garage. Got the collar. Got you sitting there filming. Got all of your confessions. Brian reached the door. Stay away from my son, or that footage goes everywhere. Police, FBI, every news station in California. You can't, Cassie started. I just did. Brian stepped outside, still holding Matt. Wade appeared from around the corner, camera in hand, expression grim. Got everything. Wade confirmed. Send it to cloud storage too, just in case. Brian carried Matt through the yard, toward the gate, expecting someone to follow, to fight, to stop him. But the Pennis just stood in their garage, frozen, as if the script they'd been following for months had suddenly run out of pages. In the truck, Brian held his son, rocking him gently as the boy sobbed into his shirt. Wade got on the passenger side, quiet, present. I'm sorry, Brian whispered into Matt's hair. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you sooner. I'm so sorry I left you there even once. You came back. Matt managed between gulps of air. You promised and you came back. Always. I'll always come back for you. Brian's own tears fell now, hot and angry. They'll never touch you again. I promise you that. But even as he said it, Brian knew it wasn't enough. The footage Wade captured was evidence, yes. They could go to the police, start the legal process. But that was slow, uncertain. And there were 23 other families out there, 23 other children who might still be suffering through what Matt had endured. The legal way was the right way. But Brian Tucker wasn't interested in right anymore. He was interested in justice. Brian took Matt to Wade's house rather than their own. The place smelled like coffee and photochemicals, every surface cluttered with equipment, but it was safe. Wade set up Matt on the couch with cartoons and hot chocolate, while Brian stood in the kitchen, hands shaking as adrenaline finally caught up with him. What are you thinking? Wade asked quietly, transferring the footage from his camera to 3 separate hard drives. I'm thinking my wife has been methodically torturing our son for half a year. Brian's voice came out flat, dead. I'm thinking her parents run some kind of child abuse training program and sell it to other families. I'm thinking there are at least 23 other kids out there right now. Maybe in collars, maybe in worse. We call the police, Wade said. Right now, this is clear-cut child abuse, conspiracy, probably trafficking or exploitation charges too. And then what? They lawyer up. Clint and Lynn have money. Clint's military pension plus whatever they're making from this program. They'll get out on bail while the case builds. How long until trial? A year? 18 months? Meanwhile, those other families get warned, destroy evidence, move operations. Wade's jaw worked. So what's the alternative? Brian looked toward the living room where Matt sat transfixed by animated animals. His son, his little boy who brought wounded insects inside and cried at commercials. The boy who'd been begging for help and Brian had been too blind to see it. I need to know everything, Brian said. How their program works, who their clients are, where the evidence is. And then he met Wade's eyes. Then I need to make absolutely certain they can never do this to another child. That sounds like you're planning something that isn't exactly legal. Does it? Wade was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. I'm in. Whatever you need. First thing, we can't go home. Cassie has a key, and after today, she'll either show up to take Matt or call the cops, saying I kidnapped him. You can both stay here. How about the spare room and an air mattress? I need a lawyer too. Someone who specializes in family law and custody, who can move fast. Emily Porter, Wade said immediately. Remember her? Photographed her wedding 2 years ago. She's a family law attorney, handles a lot of abuse cases. Good people. Can you call her? Already texting. Wade's thumbs flew across his phone. What else? Brian thought about the notebook in Lynn's hand, the stopwatch in Clint's. I need to get into their house, see what records they keep. But I can't do it officially. Any search warrant tips them off. So, unofficially. Yeah. When? Soon. Tonight, maybe. While they're scrambling. Brian poured himself water, but didn't drink it, just held the cold glass. Wade, if you want out, I understand. This is going to get messy. Wade looked at him, then toward Matt. That kid in there is like a nephew to me. Those people hurt him, and God knows how many others. Messy doesn't scare me. Brian's phone buzzed. Cassie. He declined to call. She called again. Again. On the fourth attempt, he answered. Brian, we need to talk about what happened. No. His voice was steel. You lost the right to talk when you put our son in a torture device and filmed it. It's not torture. It's discipline. If you'd just let me explain the methodology. I'm filing for divorce and full custody and a restraining order. Silence. Then, you can't keep me from my son. Watch me. I'm his mother. You're his abuser. Brian felt surprisingly calm now. Here's what's going to happen, Cassie. You're going to tell me everything about your parents' program. Who the clients are, where the records are kept, how long this has been running. And if you cooperate, maybe I don't send the footage Wade captured to every news station in the state. You're bluffing. Try me. Another pause. I want immunity. From what? Whatever you're planning. I know you, Brian. You're not the forgive and forget type when someone hurts what's yours. Give me immunity and I'll tell you what you want to know. Brian almost laughed. You want a deal? I'm Matt's mother. He needs me, even if you can't see that right now. I can help you take down my parents' operation, but I want protection. Legal protection. You want to flip on your parents to save yourself. I want to protect my family. My father, he's not well. This program started as something small, but it's gotten out of control. There are clients I've never met, money moving in ways I don't understand. Something bigger is happening, and I'm afraid of what it might be. Brian exchanged a look with Wade, who'd been listening. His friend mouthed, recording this? Brian nodded, seeing Wade pull up the voice memo app. What do you mean, something bigger? Not over the phone. Meet me somewhere public. Bring a lawyer if you want, but come alone. I'll tell you everything, but I need your word you'll protect me when this goes public. My word doesn't mean much to you, given you've been lying for 6 months. Brian, please. I made mistakes, I know that now. But there are children in real danger, and I'm trying to help. Against every instinct, Brian said, fine, but we meet somewhere very public. With cameras. The coffee shop on 5th and Broadway. 1 hour. If you bring police, I walk and you get nothing. She hung up. Wade looked skeptical. This could be a trap. Probably is, Brian agreed. But she sounded scared. And if there really are more kids at risk, I need to know. I'll watch Matt. But Brian? Be careful. People like the Pennis don't run operations like this without connections. You might be walking into something bigger than you realize. Brian nodded, but his mind was already calculating risks and angles. Cassie wanted immunity, which meant she knew things worth trading. And if her own father scared her, then the program wasn't just about discipline. It was about money, probably a lot of it. He looked in on Matt one more time before leaving. His son had fallen asleep on the couch, hot chocolate mug still in his small hands. Even in sleep, tension lined the boy's face. I'm going to fix this, Brian whispered. All of it. Then he left to meet his wife and hear exactly what kind of hell he'd stumbled into. The coffee shop was a hipster place with exposed brick and overpriced lattes. Brian arrived 15 minutes early, chose a table with a clear view of the entrance and exits, and positioned his phone to record the conversation. The place was moderately busy, enough witnesses, not so crowded he couldn't hear. Cassie walked in at exactly noon, wearing sunglasses despite the overcast sky. She'd changed clothes, traded her casual wear for business slacks and a blazer. Armor. She scanned the room, spotted Brian, and walked over without ordering anything. You're recording this, she said, sitting across from him. Yes. Good. I want this documented. She removed the sunglasses. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but whether from crying or stress, Brian couldn't tell. I need you to understand something first. I love Matt. I know you don't believe that right now, but I do. I thought I was helping him. By torturing him, by making him stronger. She said it without irony, as if it made perfect sense. My father raised me the same way. Stress positions, cold water baths, sleep deprivation, all of it. And I'm successful. I'm strong. I thought. You thought child abuse was normal because it happened to you. I thought I was preventing him from becoming weak. Like she stopped. Like me, Cassie looked away. My parents said you were weak, that I'd married below my potential. When Matt started showing signs of being too sensitive, too emotional, they convinced me it was your genetics. They said if we didn't intervene early, he'd end up just another soft man who couldn't handle the real world. Brian felt something cold settle in his stomach. When did you start planning this? Before we even had Matt. My parents suggested I marry someone malleable, someone who wouldn't question their methods when the time came. She met his eyes finally. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am. How many families? 32 active clients. They pay anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000, depending on the program, length, and intensity. Brian's hand tightened on his coffee cup. That's over $1 million potentially. More. They're graduated programs. Some kids have been in the system for 3 years. Christ. It gets worse. Cassie leaned forward. 2 months ago, a man named Alvin Walker approached my father. He runs something bigger. I don't know what exactly. But he's been touring facilities like my parents, recruiting. He offered them $500,000 to franchise their methods, expand to other cities. My father jumped at it. Facilities? There are more. At least 4 that I know of in California. Maybe more out of state. Walker coordinates them, shares client lists, best practices. He's building a network. She pulled out her phone, slid it across the table. Those are the files I could access. Client names, addresses, payment records. And that's Walker's contact information. Brian scrolled through the documents, stomach churning. Some of the addresses were local. He recognized street names, neighborhoods. These weren't distant monsters. They were neighbors. Why are you giving me this? Because last week, one of the children died. The coffee shop noise seemed to drop away. What? A boy in San Diego. Cardiac arrest during a stress exercise. He was 8 years old. Walker made it disappear, paid off the coroner, listed it as a pre-existing heart condition. But I saw the real report my father kept. That child was healthy before the program. Cassie's hand shook. I realized then what I'd been part of. Not discipline. Abuse. Torture. Possible manslaughter. And you want immunity from that. I want out before another child dies. And I want Matt safe. You win, Brian. You get full custody. I'll sign whatever you want. But But I need protection from Walker and his people. Once this goes public, I'm a liability to them. Brian studied her, trying to determine what was real and what was performance. What does Walker get from this besides money? I don't know, but twice I've seen him with men who didn't look like concerned parents. Military types. And there are questions on the intake forms about the children. Not just behavioral issues, but physical capabilities, pain tolerance, psychological resilience. It's like, she trailed off. Like what? Like he's testing them for something. Sorting for specific traits. Cassie wrapped her arms around herself. Maybe I'm paranoid. But Brian, I'm scared. And I want out. Brian pocketed her phone. I'll talk to the lawyer. No promises on immunity. That's not up to me. But if your information helps bring down this network, I'll speak for you. That's all I can ask. She stood to leave. Cassie, she turned back. Did you ever actually love me? Or was it always part of their plan? She was quiet for a long moment. I don't know anymore. I'm sorry. Then she walked out, leaving Brian alone with a phone full of evidence and the growing realization that his son's abuse was just one small piece of something much, much larger. He called Emily Porter on the way back to Wade's house. Mr. Tucker, the attorney answered. Wade briefed me. I'm appalled by what happened to your son. I've already drafted emergency custody motions. We can file this afternoon. I have more evidence now. A lot more. And it's bigger than just one family. How much bigger? Multi-state. Possibly federal jurisdiction. And there's been a death. Silence. Then, I think we need to have a longer conversation. And possibly loop in someone from the DA's office. No, not yet. Brian navigated traffic, mind racing. The people running this have connections. Money. They made a child's death disappear. If we go through official channels, they'll know. They'll scatter. Mr. Tucker, I understand you're angry, but I'm not angry. I'm focused. And I need your help, but as my attorney, not as an officer of the court. Can you do that? Emily Porter sighed. What are you proposing? I'm proposing we gather enough evidence to make this absolutely bulletproof before we go public. I'm proposing we identify every child currently in danger and extract them before the network knows we're coming. And I'm proposing we do it in a way where these people can't lawyer their way out or disappear to some non-extradition country. That's vigilante justice. That's protecting children while building an ironclad case. Are you in or not? Another long pause. I'll need to see everything you have. And Mr. Tucker, if anyone gets hurt in this crusade of yours, I walk. Understood. Understood. Can you meet at Wade Schaefer's house? Give me an hour. Brian hung up and immediately called one more number, a man he'd sworn never to contact again. Jacob Fitzpatrick answered on the third ring. Tucker, been a while. I need your help, Jake. Remember when you offered to teach me everything you knew about information security? Said I should have gone into your field instead of construction management. I remember. You said my field was too close to illegal for your comfort. Yeah, well, my comfort level just changed. By the time Brian returned to Wade's house, Matt was awake and playing with Wade's old cameras, carefully examining each lens under his friend's patient instruction. The normalcy of it, the quiet focus, the gentle explanation, made Brian's throat tight. This was what childhood should look like. Emily Porter arrived first, a woman in her mid-40s with kind eyes and an efficient manner. She listened to Brian's recording of Cassie's confession, reviewed the files on Cassie's phone, and made careful notes. This is substantial, she said finally. With Mrs. Tucker's cooperation, we could build a case that brings down the entire network. But Mr. Tucker, this needs to involve authorities. The FBI has a child exploitation and human trafficking task force that handles exactly this type of operation. How long does that take? From initial report to arrests. Weeks minimum, more likely months. They'll need to verify information, coordinate across jurisdictions. And in those weeks or months, how many more children suffer? How many more die? Brian shook his head. I'm not sitting on this. Then what's your plan? Before Brian could answer, the doorbell rang. Wade answered, letting in Jacob Fitzpatrick, a lean man with graying temples and the kind of quiet intensity that came from years in military intelligence work. He'd retired to the private sector 5 years ago, now doing security consulting that Brian suspected involved activities best not examined too closely. "The gang's all here," Jake said, shaking Wade's hand. "Tucker, you sounded urgent on the phone. What's this about?" Brian laid it all out. Matt's abuse, the Pennis program, Walker's network, the death in San Diego. Jake listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. 32 active clients in your region, Jake said when Brian finished. 4 known facilities. 1 coordinator with enough juice to cover up a child's death. That's not just a network. That's infrastructure. Walker's built something sustainable. Can you find him? Alvin Walker? Jake pulled out his tablet, fingers flying. Common name, but with the details you gave. Yeah, I can find him. I can probably find his entire operation. Whether you want to know what I'll need to do to access that information is another question. I don't care about legality right now. Emily Porter closed her eyes. I'm not hearing this. Then go wait in another room, Brian said, not unkindly. But Emily, you said yourself weeks or months. I'm talking days. By this weekend, I want every child out of danger and every person involved exposed. That's impossible, Emily said. Nothing's impossible. Jake's grin was sharp, just expensive and illegal. Lucky for you, Tucker, I've been bored lately, and I really don't like people who hurt kids. Jake, I can't pay you. Didn't ask for payment. Consider this pro bono work. Besides, some of my methods don't work as well if there's a paper trail. He cracked his knuckles. I'll need access to Mrs. Tucker's phone, any physical evidence for the Pena house, in 12 hours. Can you get me into their house? Brian thought about it. Tonight, they'll be regrouping, probably consulting with Walker. I can watch the place, wait until they leave. Breaking and entering, Emily said weakly. Unauthorized access to private property. Illegal surveillance. Feel free to leave any time, Brian said. But if you stay, I need you to help me understand custody law. I need Matt protected right now, today, in a way that Cassie can't challenge or reverse. Can you do that? Emily looked at Matt, still examining camera lenses with childlike wonder, blissfully unaware of the adult machinations happening in the next room. Something in her face hardened. I can file emergency custody orders based on documented abuse. The video Wade captured is grounds for immediate intervention. I can also file restraining orders against Mrs. Tucker and both grandparents, effective immediately. That gives you legal backing if they try to take Matt. How fast? I have a friend who's a family court judge. If I file electronically in the next hour, she can review and sign off today. You'll have temporary full custody by dinner. Do it. Brian, Wade said quietly, you're sure about this? Once you start down this road, there's no walking it back. Brian looked at his friend, then at Jake, then at Emily. They hurt my son for 6 months while I was too blind to see it. There are 31 other kids out there right now, maybe more, suffering the same thing. And the people responsible think they can pay off coroners and make it all disappear. So yeah, I'm sure. Then we're doing this, Wade said. All of us. Jake pulled up a map on his tablet. Show me the Pena house. I'll scope it remotely, find their security system, figure out the best entry point. Then tonight, we go shopping for evidence. Emily gathered her things. I'll get the custody filing done. But Mr. Tucker, when this is over, when you've exposed the network and protected those children, you need to let the law handle punishment. Promise me that. Brian met her eyes and saw the worry there, the fear that he'd become something dark in his quest for justice. I promise that everyone involved will get exactly what they deserve. It wasn't quite the promise she'd wanted, but it was all he could give. After Emily left, the 3 men gathered around Jake's tablet, planning their reconnaissance of the Pena house. Matt wandered in, saw the serious expressions, and climbed into Brian's lap without a word. We playing Army, Dad? Something like that, buddy. Are we winning? Brian kissed the top of his son's head, breathing in the little kid's smell of shampoo and innocence. We will be. I promise you that. At 9:47 p.m., Brian and Jake crouched in the oleander bushes across from the Pena house, watching through night vision binoculars. Wade remained at his house with Matt, maintaining phone contact and ready to call in a distraction if needed. Security system is basic, Jake whispered, checking his tablet. Hardwired, not smart home integrated. I can loop the camera feeds from here. Motion sensors at the front and back doors, but nothing on the garage side entry, probably because they use it so frequently they trigger false alarms. Amateurs. Clint's military, Brian countered. He's not stupid. No, but he's arrogant. Military guys like him think their training makes them untouchable. They don't account for actual professionals. Jake's fingers danced across his screen. Okay, cameras are on a 30-second loop starting now. We've got a 20-minute window before the loop risk detection. In and out, fast and quiet. They moved across the street, sticking to shadows. The Pena house was dark except for a single upstairs light, Clint and Lynn's bedroom. According to Cassie, they kept meticulous records of everything, stored in filing cabinets in the converted den. That was the primary target. Jake picked the garage door lock in under 15 seconds. Brian's stomach churned as they entered the space where, just hours ago, Matt had been suffering. The collar device still hung from its pole, a metal monument to cruelty. Jesus, Jake breathed, seeing it. You weren't exaggerating. I wish I was. They moved through the garage into the house proper. Jake disabled the motion sensor at the interior door, and they entered the kitchen. Brian had been here dozens of times for family dinners, always feeling slightly uncomfortable under Clint's scrutinizing stare and Lynn's rigid hospitality. Now he saw the place differently, not as a home, but as a headquarters for something monstrous. The den was down the hall, past the living room with its military memorabilia and perfectly arranged furniture. Brian had always thought the regimented decoration was just Clint being Clint. Now he wondered if the control extended to everything in their lives, if they saw the entire world as something to be disciplined into submission. Inside the den, Jake immediately went for the filing cabinets while Brian checked the computer. It was password protected, but Jake produced a USB drive that bypassed the login in seconds. Client files are all here, Jake said, photographing documents rapidly with his phone. Names, addresses, payment schedules. This is damning. And look, cross-references to other facilities. San Diego, Sacramento, Fresno, and Portland? This is bigger than California. Brian opened emails on the computer. Most were mundane, but one folder labeled AW Network contained everything. Correspondence with Alvin Walker. Contracts. Methodologies. Training manuals. And videos. Hundreds of video files with clinical names. Subject, 12_day, 14_session, 3. Brian opened one at random. A girl, maybe 7 years old, in a stress position similar to what Matt had endured. The timestamp ran for 43 minutes. He closed it immediately, feeling sick. Copy everything, Brian said. Every file, every email, every piece of evidence. Already on it. Jake had produced a portable hard drive, transferring data at high speed. This is going to take 10 minutes, though. We got time. That's when they heard the front door open. Both men froze. Footsteps in the foyer. Heavy mail. Clint. And then a second set. Lighter. Cassie? Kitchen. Clint's voice carried. I need to check something. Brian and Jake looked at each other in panic. They were in the den, visible from the hallway if anyone walked past. The data transfer was at 42%. Stopping it now would be suspicious. Leaving the drive might be disastrous. Jake made a quick decision. He grabbed the hard drive, yanked it free despite the computer's protest warning, and shoved it in his jacket. Then he pulled Brian toward the window, a ground floor window that opened to the side yard. Go, Jake hissed. The window was painted shut. Brian pulled a multi-tool from his pocket, working the seal as quietly as possible. Behind them, footsteps approached the den. The door was opening. The window popped free. Brian and Jake tumbled out into the flower bed just as the lights in the den clicked on. They rolled into the shadows against the house, barely breathing. Through the window, they could see Clint and Cassie enter the den. Cassie looked terrible, mascara streaked, still in the same clothes from earlier. Clint looked furious. Can't believe you gave him that information, Clint was saying. Do you understand what Walker will do when he finds out? I had to. Brian has footage, Dad. Real footage of us. So what? We'll discredit it, claim it's edited. We've dealt with reluctant clients before. Not like this. Brian's not backing down. He's going to take Matt and disappear if we don't. Then we make sure he can't. Clint's voice went cold. Walker has resources. People who handle complications. Brian's about to have a very unfortunate accident. Brian's blood ran to ice. You can't, Cassie said, but it sounded weak. Watch me. He's threatening everything we've built. The network, the income, our reputation. One soft civilian isn't going to destroy 20 years of work. Clint noticed the computer screen, still showing the email folder. Did you leave this open? No, someone's been in here. Clint pulled out his phone. Walker needs to know. Now. Brian and Jake didn't wait to hear more. They crept along the side of the house, reached the front yard, sprinted for the oleanders. Behind them, lights began clicking on throughout the Pana house. They made it to Jake's car, parked 3 blocks away, and drove in tense silence until they were a safe distance away. Well, Jake said finally. That went about as well as could be expected. He's going to kill me. Brian's hand shook. Clint's going to have me killed. He's going to try. Big difference. Jake patted the hard drive in his jacket. But we've got most of what we need. And now we know they're panicking. Panic people make mistakes. I need to protect Matt. And Wade. If they come after me, they'll come after everyone you care about. Jake finished. Which is why we don't sit around waiting. Tucker, you wanted to move fast? We're moving now. Tonight. No more reconnaissance. We burn their whole operation down before they can regroup. Brian's phone buzzed. Emily Porter calling at nearly 10:30 p.m. Mr. Tucker, I have your emergency custody order. It's official. You have sole legal and physical custody of Matt effective immediately. But I need to tell you something. I just got a call from Cassie Tucker's attorney. She's recanting her earlier statement, claims you coerced her confession, and is filing for full custody herself. When? They filed 20 minutes ago. Emergency hearing set for tomorrow morning. They're moving faster than us, Brian said. What? Nothing. Thanks, Emily. See you in court tomorrow. He hung up and looked at Jake. They're trying to take Matt legally while planning to take me out permanently. How much data did you get? Maybe 60% of what was on that computer. Enough to start with. Then we start. Call everyone you know who can help. We're exposing this tonight. It's almost midnight. I don't care. We don't have time to wait. Somewhere out there, 32 kids are in the same hell Matt was in. And every hour we delay is another hour they suffer. Brian's jaw set. So we don't delay. We act. Jake grinned, and it was a wild, dangerous expression. Now you're talking my language. Let's go wake up some journalists and federal agents. This is going to be fun. They reconvened at Wade's house, spreading printouts of evidence across the dining room table. Jake had called 3 contacts. A cybersecurity friend named Kenneth Avery, who could verify the digital evidence. An investigative journalist named Emily Porter, no relation to the lawyer, who'd made her name exposing corruption, and someone Jake would only identify as a friend at the bureau. Kenneth arrived first, a nervous man in his 30s who kept adjusting his glasses. He examined the data files with growing horror. This is sophisticated, he said. Client database, payment processing, video archives. They built a whole platform. And see this? The video files are tagged with metadata, subject ID, program type, intensity level, duration. They're treating children like test subjects. Can you authenticate it all? Brian asked. Prove it hasn't been altered or fabricated? Easily. Digital signatures, timestamps, IP addresses. This is real. And more than that, I can trace the payment processing. They're using offshore accounts, layered transfers, but it's all documented. I can follow the money all the way back to Walker and beyond. Beyond, Kenneth pulled up a flowchart. Walker's not the top of the food chain. He reports to someone. Look at these wire transfers. They all route through a holding company called Resilience Development Group. I'll bet money that's a front for something bigger. Jake and Brian exchanged looks. How much bigger? Jake asked. I need more time to dig, but based on the amounts flowing through, multi-million-dollar operation, possibly international. This isn't just some fringe discipline program. It's systematic, organized, well-funded. A knock at the door. Wade admitted the journalist, Emily Porter, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with decades of investigative experience. She listened to the summary, examined the evidence, and nodded grimly. I can publish this by morning, she said. Online first. Major outlets picking it up by noon. But Mr. Tucker, you need to understand what happens when I do. These people will deny everything, attack your credibility, claim you're a bitter ex-husband fabricating evidence. Can you weather that? I can. What about your son? He'll be in the spotlight. Brian looked toward the bedroom where Matt slept. He's already been hurt. But if exposing this stops it from happening to other kids, then it's worth it. Emily the journalist made notes. I'll need exclusive access to your story. And I'll need to verify everything independently before I publish. That'll take a few hours. You don't have a few hours, Jake said. Clint Payne knows we were in his house. He's contacting Walker right now. They'll start destroying evidence, warning clients, maybe even moving children. You publish what you can verify immediately and update as more comes in. That's not how journalism works. It is when children's lives are at stake. Brian leaned forward. Please, I'm giving you the story of the year, but it only matters if those kids are safe. Can you at least publish a preliminary piece? Raise the alarm. Emily considered, then nodded. I'll publish what I can confirm from public records and your testimony. But you're exposing yourself to legal liability if any of this is wrong. It's not wrong. I saw my son in that collar. Everything else is just details. The last visitor arrived after 1 a.m. A severe-looking woman in her 40s who flashed FBI credentials and introduced herself as Special Agent Michelle Rowe. She listened to everything with a poker face, examined the evidence Kenneth had authenticated, and finally sat back. You've brought me evidence of a multi-state child abuse network, obtained through illegal surveillance and breaking and entering, she said flatly. Normally, that would taint everything, make it inadmissible. But Brian sensed a but coming. But you've also potentially identified children in immediate danger. That gives me exigent circumstances to act. I can get warrants, coordinate with local offices, start pulling these kids out tonight. She looked at Brian. You did this backwards, Mr. Tucker. You should have come to us first. Your process takes time. Time those kids don't have. Our process also protects civil rights and builds cases that stick. What you've done could let these people walk on technicalities. What I've done is light a fire under an operation that's been running unchecked for years. Now you can either help me put it out or watch it burn while you worry about procedure. Agent Rowe almost smiled. You're going to make my job very difficult. But yes, I'll help. On one condition, you step back. Let the FBI handle it from here. No more breaking and entering. No more vigilante justice. Deal. Brian thought about Clint's words. Brian's about to have a very unfortunate accident. I can't promise that. Then I can help you. Michelle, Jake said carefully. Clint Payne is former military, connected, and as of tonight, he's desperate. He made threats against Tucker's life. Are you going to protect him while you build your case? Agent Rowe sighed. I can offer protective custody, which means hiding while they regroup. No. Brian shook his head. I'll stay out of your way, but I'm not hiding. Matt and I are staying with Wade until this is resolved. You want to post an agent outside? Fine, but I'm not running. Stubborn. Determined. There's a court hearing tomorrow morning, Emily the lawyer interjected. Cassie Tucker is trying to regain custody. That's going to be complicated with an ongoing FBI investigation. Not if I'm there, Agent Rowe said. I'll coordinate with your judge, make sure she knows the situation. Mrs. Tucker won't be getting custody of anyone. She stood. Give me everything you have. I'll have teams moving by 3 a.m. Mr. Tucker, try to stay alive until we've arrested everyone. And Mr. Fitzpatrick? Next time you want to hand me evidence, maybe don't admit to half a dozen felonies while doing it. Jake grinned. No promises. After Agent Rowe left with copies of all the evidence, the remaining four sat in exhausted silence. Is it done? Wade asked. Is it over? Not even close, Brian said. The FBI will move on the obvious targets, the pinnace, the known facilities. But Walker and whoever's behind Resilience Development Group, they'll have warning, time to cover their tracks. And Clint's threat isn't going away. So what do we do? Brian looked at the evidence still spread across the table. 32 families, dozens of children, all trusting that Walker's discipline program would fix their problem kids, all paying thousands, creating a money trail that led somewhere dark. We do what the FBI can't, Brian said. We go after the source. Meaning Walker, Jake said. Meaning Walker. Kenneth cleared his throat. I can help with that. Give me another day with this data, and I'll know everything about Alvin Walker. Where he lives, how he operates, who he talks to. Everything. Do it. Brian felt a strange calm settling over him. Tomorrow, the FBI raids the facilities and the story goes public. That's chaos for Walker, pressure mistakes. That's when we move on him. And do what exactly? Wade asked. Get him to confess everything. On camera. Names, locations, the people funding this. Everything the FBI might miss. Brian met his friend's worried look. I know how it sounds, but this isn't about revenge anymore. It's about making sure every single person involved faces consequences. Jake nodded slowly. You'll need help. This Walker guy, if he's running a network this big, he's not going to go quietly. I'm not asking you to. You're not asking. I'm volunteering. Jake glanced at Wade. You in? Wade thought about Matt, about the collar, about 32 other children. Yeah, I'm in. Kenneth adjusted his glasses. I'm just a computer guy, but I'll provide whatever support you need. Information, communication, whatever. Brian felt something like gratitude cutting through the anger and fear. Thank you. All of you. Emily the journalist had been quiet, taking notes. Now she looked up. I'll publish in 4 hours. That gives the FBI time to start moving. But Mr. Tucker, once this goes live, your life changes. You'll be famous, controversial. People will investigate every aspect of your life looking for dirt. Are you ready for that? As long as Matt's safe, I don't care. What about justice? Real justice, not just legal consequences. What do you mean? I mean these people, the clients, the parents who paid for this. They're not going to face criminal charges. They'll claim they didn't know, they were misled, they thought it was legitimate. Most will walk away with nothing worse than embarrassment. Does that sit right with you? Brian thought about it. 23 families, Clint had said. Then Cassie said 32. All of them willingly paying to have their children tortured. All of them complicit. No, he admitted, it doesn't. So what are you going to do about it? I don't know yet. One problem at a time. Emily smiled, and it wasn't entirely kind. Just remember, Mr. Tucker, you don't have to play by their rules. Sometimes the best justice isn't legal. It's poetic. She left after that, promising to send him a draft of the article before publishing. The others dispersed shortly after, Jake to start planning their approach to Walker, Kenneth to dig deeper into the financial records, Wade to catch a few hours of sleep before morning. Brian sat alone in the living room, watching the sunrise through the window, thinking about Emily's words. Poetic justice, making them feel what they'd inflicted, turning their methods against them. An idea began to form, dark and satisfying. But that would come later. First, they had to survive tomorrow. The custody hearing at 9 a.m. was a formality. Agent Rowe testified about the ongoing investigation, and Brian's attorney presented the video evidence. Cassie's lawyer tried to argue coercion and misunderstanding, but the judge, a stern woman named Geraldine Mills, wasn't having it. Mrs. Tucker, I've reviewed the evidence, Judge Mills said. I've seen the footage of your son in obvious distress, in a device clearly designed to cause pain. I've heard your recorded confession. Unless you can provide compelling reason why I shouldn't grant Mr. Tucker's emergency custody petition, I'm prepared to rule. Cassie stood, looking small and defeated. I can't, Your Honor. My husband is right. Matt should be with him. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Judge Mills raised an eyebrow. You're not contesting? No, Your Honor. I'm also. Cassie took a shaky breath. I'm prepared to testify against my parents and Alvin Walker in exchange for cooperation consideration. I've already been in contact with the FBI. Brian felt a surge of conflicting emotions, surprise, suspicion, faint hope. Was this real or another manipulation? Judge Mills nodded. Very well. I'm granting Mr. Tucker full legal and physical custody of the minor child. Mrs. Tucker, you're restricted to supervised visitation only, pending the outcome of criminal proceedings. This court is adjourned. Outside, Cassie approached Brian carefully. Can we talk? Just for a minute. Brian looked at Agent Rowe, who nodded permission. They stepped aside from the crowd. I meant what I said in there, Cassie said quietly. I'm cooperating fully. And Brian, I know you probably don't believe this, but I do love Matt. I was wrong. My parents were wrong. I let them convince me that hurting him was helping him, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. You should. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking that someday, when Matt's older, you'll tell him I tried to make it right. That I helped stop this. Brian studied her, trying to see past the performance to whatever truth might exist beneath. Did your parents really threaten me? Or was that an act too? My father is dangerous when cornered. Please be careful. He's not well. The program, the control, the money, it's consumed him. He'll do anything to protect it. Good to know. Brian turned to leave. Brian, he looked back. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't. Thank you for saving our son. He didn't respond, just walked away. Some betrayals were too deep for words. By noon, Emily the journalist's story had exploded across national news. Multi-state child abuse network exposed. FBI raids 4 facilities. The article included Brian's interview, excerpts from the evidence, and photos of the collar device. Cable news picked it up, internet forums dissected every detail, and the term discipline network trended worldwide. Brian watched the coverage from Wade's living room, Matt playing quietly beside him. The boy didn't fully understand what was happening, only that they were staying with Mr. Wade for a while and Mommy wouldn't be visiting. Dad, Matt asked during a commercial break, are Grandma and Grandpa in trouble? Yes, buddy, they are. Because of what they did to me. Because of what they did to you and other kids. Matt considered this. Good. They were mean. The simple, childlike assessment nearly broke Brian. They were. But you're safe now. I promise. His phone rang. Kenneth, about everything on Walker, Kenneth said excitedly. Home address, business fronts, bank accounts, travel records. This guy's been operating for 6 years. Tucker. The network is way bigger than we thought. How big? 12 facilities across 8 states. Over 200 children in the programs at any given time. Gross revenue over $8 million annually. And get this, the Resilience Development Group? It's funded by a private equity firm called Barker Strategic Ventures. Never heard of them. Most people haven't. They specialize in unconventional human capital development. Translation, they fund programs that push ethical boundaries. Prisons, military contractors, behavioral modification research. Walker's network is just one project in their portfolio. Brian felt cold. So, this isn't about discipline at all. It never was. It's about data. Walker's collecting information on how children respond to extreme stress. Pain tolerance, psychological breaking points, compliance markers. Then he sells that research to Barker, who packages it for clients who want to know how to break and rebuild human beings. That's evil? Yeah, and it gets worse. 3 of the children who've been through Walker's programs have disappeared, officially listed as runaways or returned to relatives, but no paper trail. I think Barker's recruiting the ones who show the right characteristics. Recruiting them for what? I don't know, but it's nothing good. Brian closed his eyes, feeling the scope of this expand beyond anything he'd imagined. Where's Walker now? Home address in Laguna Beach. Fancy place, oceanfront. But Tucker, the FBI's looking for him too. If you go there, I'm not going to arrest him. I'm going to make him talk. That's what I thought you'd say. I'll send you the address and everything else I've found. Be careful. Walker's not like the Pennis. He's a true believer in what he's doing. After Kenneth hung up, Brian found Jake in Wade's garage, assembling equipment. We're doing this tonight, Brian said. Walker's in Laguna Beach. I want him on camera, confessing everything before the FBI takes him in. The FBI's already issued a warrant. He's probably lawyered up, not talking. Then we make him talk. Jake looked up from the camera rig he was building. You want to torture information out of him? I want to give him a taste of his own medicine. See how he likes it. That's a line, Tucker. You cross it, you become just like them. No. Brian's voice was hard. I become someone who stops them. There's a difference. Jake studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but we do this smart. We go in with a plan, we get what we need, and we leave him for the FBI. No permanent damage, no point of no return. Agreed. Then let's go ruin Alvin Walker's evening. Walker's house was exactly what Kenneth had described. A modernist glass structure perched on the Laguna Beach cliffs, waves crashing below. Security was substantial but predictable. Cameras, motion sensors, probably an alarm system tied to a private security company. He knows the FBI is coming. Jake observed from their position across the street. He's packing. See the lights moving around inside. Through high-powered binoculars, Brian watched a figure moving between rooms, carrying boxes. Walker was tall, athletic, probably mid-40s. He moved with military precision, someone used to pressure situations. If he runs, we lose him, Brian said. So we don't let him run. Jake checked his watch. Security patrol passes every 90 minutes. Last one was 20 minutes ago. We got a window. They approached from the beach side, climbing the rocks with surprising ease. Brian's construction background made him comfortable with heights and precarious positions. Jake had brought gear, rappelling equipment, glass gutters, electromagnetic pulse device to fry the alarm system. 30 seconds after I trigger the EMP, Jake whispered, "The alarm company will get an alert." Then it's a question of how fast their response is. So we have maybe 10 minutes inside. Less. 5 to be safe. They entered through a ground floor window, landing in what looked like a home office. Papers cover the desk. Walker really was packing, destroying evidence. Brian grabbed a stack of documents while Jake secured the exits. "Walker," Brian called out. "FBI's on the way. You're finished. But you can make this easier on yourself." Footsteps upstairs, then running. Walker wasn't buying it. Jake blocked the front door just as Walker reached it. The two men collided, struggling. Walker was trained, dangerous, but Jake had 20 years of experience dealing with dangerous people. Within seconds, Walker was face down on the marble floor, hands zip-tied behind his back. "Who the hell are you?" Walker demanded. "I'm Brian Tucker. You tortured my son." Recognition flickered in Walker's eyes. "Tucker, the construction guy. Clint told me you'd be a problem." Clint was right. Brian pulled out his phone, set it to record. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me everything about your network. Every facility, every client, every person involved. And you're going to tell me about the children who disappeared." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Kenneth Avery traced your financial records. Barker Strategic Ventures. Resilience Development Group. Human Capital Development Research. 3 missing children. I know everything, Walker. I just need it on camera." Walker laughed, an ugly sound. "You think you've exposed something? You've barely scratched the surface. Barker has operations on 4 continents. The Child Discipline Network? That's just R&D, testing methodologies that get applied at scale in other contexts." "What context?" "Prisons, military training, political re-education. Any situation where you need to break someone down and rebuild them. We perfected the techniques on children because children are honest. They can't hide their breaking points. Then we sell that knowledge to governments, corporations, whoever's willing to pay." Brian felt sick. "You're experimenting on children. We're advancing the science of behavioral modification. And the children we recruit? The ones who show exceptional resilience? They're given opportunities, training, education, placement with families who understand their potential. It's not kidnapping. It's talent recruitment. You're stealing children and brainwashing them. I'm identifying exceptional candidates and developing them. There's a difference." Walker's voice held absolute conviction. "Your son, for instance. Clint's reports said Matthew showed unusual pain tolerance for his age, combined with strong attachment bonds. With proper conditioning, he could have been extraordinary." Red clouded Brian's vision. He grabbed Walker by the collar, lifting him up. "You're talking about my son like he's an experiment." He was. They all are. That's the whole point. Walker didn't even seem afraid. "You can't stop this, Tucker. Arrest me, arrest the Pennis, shut down every facility you've found. There are 12 more you haven't found. Barker will just relocate, rebrand, continue the research elsewhere. This is bigger than you." Jake had been filming everything. Now he looked at Brian meaningfully. They had what they needed, a full confession on video. But Brian wasn't done. "You know what I think?" Brian said quietly. "I think you spent so long breaking other people, You've forgotten what it feels like. So let's fix that. He pulled out a length of rope, the same kind Clint had used in Matt's collar device. Tucker, Jake warned. Don't. I'm not going to hurt him. Just show him what his victims feel. Brian rigged up a stress position similar to what Matt had endured, arms extended, rope creating tension that would become painful within minutes. Now you hold this position until the FBI arrives. Experience what you put those children through. This is assault, Walker said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. This is education. Brian, check his watch. You said you're advancing behavioral science? Let's collect some data, starting with your breaking point. Brian and Jake left Walker in the stress position, still recording on multiple cameras they'd set up. They called Agent Rowe, gave her the address, and sat in their car watching the house. You know the FBI's not going to be happy about this, Jake said. Don't care. Walker's confession is on camera. That's what matters. And leaving him like that, he'll be fine. Uncomfortable, but fine. Which is more mercy than he showed 32 kids. 20 minutes later, FBI vehicles swarmed the property. Through binoculars, Brian watched agents find Walker, release him, and lead him away in handcuffs. One agent found the cameras, the recorded confession. Agent Rowe called shortly after. Tucker, what did you do? Got you a confession. Everything. The facilities, the clients, the missing children, the research program, Barker Strategic Ventures. All on video. By breaking into his house and restraining him. I prefer to think of it as citizen's arrest. That's not what that means. But Rowe sounded more amused than angry. The confession might be inadmissible given how you obtained it. So, the leak's online. Accidentally. And the court of public opinion handles it. Silence. Then, I didn't hear that. And Tucker? Don't do anything else stupid. Let us handle the rest. The rest meaning Barker Strategic Ventures? We're building a case. But they're big, powerful, with expensive lawyers. It's going to take time. Time those missing children don't have. I know. We're doing everything we can. She hesitated. For what it's worth, you did good work. Messy, illegal, but good. Those kids owe you. They don't owe me anything. They just deserve safety. After the call ended, Brian leaned back in his seat, feeling the exhaustion finally catch up. Walker was arrested. The FBI had confessions. The story was public. Matt was safe. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Kenneth found something else, Brian said to Jake. Client lists. 32 families who paid to torture their children. What about them? Agent Rowe said most won't face charges. Claim ignorance, pay civil settlements, move on with their lives. That's how the system works. Maybe. Brian pulled up the list on his phone, scrolling through names and addresses. Normal people. Neighbors. Parents who decided their children needed to be broken. Or maybe the system needs help. Jake raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? I'm thinking those parents should know what their children went through. Firsthand. That's not justice, Tucker. That's revenge. It's education. Same thing I gave Walker. Brian looked at his friend. You don't have to be part of this. You've already done more than anyone could ask. Jake was quiet for a long moment, watching the FBI agents swarm Walker's house. Finally, he said, How many families? 32. And you want to visit all of them? Not visit. Teach. Give them the same stress tests they paid to inflict on their kids. Film it. Make sure they understand exactly what they did. That'll take weeks. I've got time. Matt's safe, custody secured, and those parents deserve to understand their choices. Jake grinned, that same wild expression from before. You're going to start a moral panic. Good. Let people panic about torturing children. Maybe they'll think twice. All right, Jake started the car. Let's go be educators. Over the next 3 weeks, Brian and Jake visited 28 of the 32 families. For had fled when the story broke, disappeared to avoid public scrutiny. But the rest? They were home, pretending nothing had happened, hoping the scandal would blow over. Brian made sure it didn't. The method was simple. Approach the parents privately, usually at night. Explain who he was, the father whose son's case broke the story open. Show them footage of their own children in the program, pulled from Walker's archives. Ask if they understood what they'd paid for. Most denied it at first. Claimed they thought it was tough love, strict discipline, nothing harmful. They'd signed waivers, attended orientation sessions where Walker presented the program as cutting-edge developmental psychology. That's when Brian would offer them a choice. Experience one session of what their child endured, or he'd make sure their involvement went viral. Not just news articles, full exposure. Names, faces, addresses. Let their employers know. Their neighbors. Their other children's schools. Most chose the session. Brian filmed everything, just like Walker had filmed the children. He didn't torture them. No pain, no fear, nothing truly harmful. Just stress positions, uncomfortable situations, mild psychological pressure. Enough to understand what their children had felt. And every single parent broke. Some in minutes, some in an hour, but they all broke. Crying, begging, apologizing. Realizing, finally, what they'd done. The footage won't be released, Brian would tell them afterward, unless you ever try to minimize what happened. Then it goes public. Understand. They always understood. By the time Brian visited the 28th family, a couple in San Diego whose 7-year-old daughter had been in the program for 9 months, Agent Rowe caught up with him. "Tucker," she said, stepping out of an FBI sedan, "we need to talk." Brian had just left the family's house, the parents still inside processing what they'd experienced. "Agent Rowe, to what do I owe the pleasure? I've been getting reports. Parents claiming they were intimidated, coerced, forced into humiliating situations by a man matching your description. Want to explain? Can't imagine what they're talking about." Brian. She used his first name, her tone shifting from official to almost sympathetic. "I know what you're doing. I even understand why. But you need to stop. This isn't justice, it's harassment. Is it harassment to show parents what they paid for? To educate them about their choices? When you threaten public exposure and force them into recorded situations? Yes, that's extortion and false imprisonment at minimum." Brian leaned against his truck. "Are any of them pressing charges?" "No." "Do any of them deny what they did?" "No." "Then what's the problem?" "The problem is you're becoming what you're fighting against. You're using fear and control to get what you want. How is that different from Walker? Intent. Walker hurt children for profit. I'm making sure adults understand consequences. Big difference." Agent Rowe crossed her arms. "The FBI has arrested 47 people connected to Walker's network. We've recovered 18 children who are being recruited for Barker's programs. We're building cases against Barker Strategic Ventures and 3 other funding sources. Justice is happening, Brian. You don't need to keep doing this." "What about the parents? The clients? Most will face civil liability. Some might see criminal charges for child endangerment. It depends on jurisdiction and what we can prove they knew. That's not enough. It's what the law allows. You want more? Become a lawmaker. Change the system. But stop vigilante justice before you end up arrested alongside the people you're exposing." Brian considered her words. She wasn't wrong. He was walking a line. Maybe had already crossed it. But every parent he'd visited, every moment of realization when they understood what they'd done to their children, that felt necessary. "I'll stop," he said finally, "after the last 4 families. Then I'm done." "Brian." "Those 4 families fled, Rowe. They took their kids and ran rather than face consequences. Where's the justice in that? We're looking for them. And when you find them, will their children be safe? Or will they disappear into the system, traumatized and abandoned? I don't know, but it's not your job to fix everything. Maybe not, but it's my job to protect Matt and kids like him. And I'm not finished yet." Agent Rowe stared at him for a long moment. "If you find those families, you call me. Immediately. You don't approach them alone. Deal. Deal." She left, and Brian knew she didn't believe him. Hell, he barely believed himself. But those 4 families, they represented something. Parents who knew what they'd done was wrong and chose to hide rather than face it. That couldn't stand. Kenneth helped track them. 2 had fled to Mexico, beyond Brian's reach. But 2 remained in the U.S., one in Oregon, one in Arizona. Brian chose Oregon first. The Brewer family lived in a remote farmhouse outside Portland. Carl and Casey Brewer had enrolled their 8-year-old son, Tom, in Walker's program after he'd been diagnosed with ADHD. Rather than accept medication and therapy, they'd wanted him fixed through discipline. Tom had spent 4 months in the program before it was exposed. Now the family had disappeared, property listed for sale, phones disconnected. But Kenneth found them through utility records. The farmhouse, newly rented under Casey's maiden name. Brian drove up alone this time. Jake had family obligations, and Wade needed to stay with Matt. It was nearly midnight when Brian arrived, parking a mile away and hiking through the fields. The house was dark except for one upstairs window. Through binoculars, Brian saw Tom's face, pale, thin, staring out at the night. The boy looked haunted. Brian approached carefully, finding a side door unlocked. Rural naivety or calculated trap. Either way, he was committed. Inside, the house smelled of disinfectant and fear. Brian crept through the kitchen toward the stairs when lights blazed on. Carl Brewer stood at the top of the stairs, hunting rifle pointed downward. I knew someone would come eventually. Wondered if it'd be FBI or someone like you. Brian raised his hand slowly. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just want to talk. About what? How we're terrible parents. How we damaged our son. We know. We fucking know. Carl's voice cracked. We believed Walker. Thought we were helping Tom, making him stronger. Now he won't eat, won't sleep, flinches when we touch him. We destroyed our child and we can't fix it. So you ran. What else could we do? Face cameras, reporters, neighbors calling us monsters? We just wanted our son to be normal. There's nothing wrong with him, Brian said quietly. He's a child with ADHD. That's not abnormal. It's not broken. It's just who he is. I know that now. Carl lowered the rifle slightly. What do you want, Tucker? To punish us? To make us feel what Tom felt? Fine. Do it. We deserve it. Brian looked up at the man, seeing not a monster, but a broken person. Someone who'd made a terrible choice and now lived with the consequences. I'm not here to punish you, Brian said. I'm here to offer you something. What? A way to make this right. Not fix it. You can't fix this. But maybe lessen the damage. Casey appeared at the top of the stairs, holding Tom's hand. The boy looked down at Brian with empty eyes. What are you talking about? Casey asked. Walker's organization is in ruins. The facilities are closed. But there are dozens of kids like Tom, traumatized, struggling, with parents who either don't know how to help or don't want to admit what happened. Those kids need support, therapy, resources, someone who understands what they went through. We're not qualified. You're more qualified than you think. You saw the program from the inside. You know what was promised versus what was delivered. You can help other parents understand the damage and how to begin healing it. Carl stared. You want us to help? I want you to stop hiding and start fixing things. Be honest about what you did, what you paid for, what it did to your son. Then help other families avoid the same mistakes or heal from them if they already did. Why would you trust us to do that? Because you're standing here with a rifle, clearly guilty and clearly suffering. Because your son looks broken and you know it's your fault. Because running didn't make you feel better, it just made you feel worse. And because maybe, just maybe, you actually want to make amends. Casey's face crumpled. We destroyed him. What do we come back from that? One step at a time, starting with getting him real help, then helping others. Brian lowered his hands. I'm not FBI. I can't arrest you. I'm just a dad who wants to make sure no more kids suffer like mine did. So here's my offer. Come back to California. Work with Agent Rowe and the victim support services being set up. Be honest about everything. Help prevent this from happening again. And if we refuse, then I expose you anyway. But you'll have missed the chance to do something good with it. Brian pulled out his phone. I'm calling Agent Rowe either way. You decide if you're running or facing this. He dialed. While it rang, Carl and Casey exchanged a long look. Some silent communication passed between them. Finally, Carl set down the rifle. Okay, he said quietly. We'll come back. Agent Rowe answered. Tucker, this better be good. I found the Brewers. They're in Oregon, and they're ready to cooperate. I'm sending you the address. You what? They want to help. They're willing to testify, share their experience, work with victim services. Just don't prosecute them into oblivion. They're genuine about making amends. Silence. Then, did you threaten them? I offer them a choice. They chose right. I'm sending Oregon Field Office. Stay there until they arrive. Will do. Brian hung up and looked at the Brewers. Agent Rowe's people will be here in an hour or so. You might want to pack. Tom spoke for the first time, his voice small and broken. Are you Matt's dad? Brian's heart clenched. Yeah, buddy. I am. Is Matt okay now? He's getting better. Still has nightmares sometimes, but he's safe and he's healing. That's good. Tom looked at his parents, then back at Brian. I used to be brave. Before. Now I'm scared all the time. Brian knelt to the boy's level, knowing he shouldn't get too close to a traumatized child, but unable to stop himself. You're still brave, Tom. Surviving what you went through? That's the bravest thing anyone can do. And it won't always feel this bad. I promise. Did you promise Matt that too? Every day. Tom nodded slowly, then retreated upstairs. Casey followed him, leaving Brian alone with Carl. Thank you, Carl said. I don't deserve mercy, but thank you. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for Tom and the other kids. They deserve parents who understand and want to help, not parents wallowing in guilt. Still, thank you. Brian waited until the FBI arrived, gave his statement, and left. One family down, 3 to go. But he was tired. So damn tired. Brian made it back to California as the sun rose, driving straight to Wade's house. Matt was awake, eating cereal and watching cartoons in his pajamas. When he saw Brian, his face lit up. Dad, you're back. Hey, buddy. Brian scooped him up, breathing in that little kid smell. Miss me? Uh-huh. Mr. Wade makes breakfast weird. I heard that. Wade called from the kitchen. Matt giggled, and the sound was medicine. For weeks after the initial rescue, Matt had barely made noise. Now, slowly, he was remembering how to be a child. How'd it go? Wade asked when Matt returned to his cartoons. Brewers are cooperating. 3 more families to find. You know you don't have to do this. The FBI's handling it. I know, but I can't stop. Not yet. Wade studied him with concern. You look like hell, Brian. When's the last time you slept? I don't know. Tuesday. It's Friday. Then Tuesday. Brian rubbed his face. I just need to finish this. Make sure all those kids are accounted for, all the parents understand. Then I can rest. You're running on empty. You're going to crash. After, Emily the lawyer called mid-morning with news. Brian, the divorce is finalized. Full custody to you, supervised visitation for Cassie, pending her cooperation with federal prosecutors. She signed everything, no contest. That was fast. Her attorney wanted it over quickly. I think they're hoping cooperation and remorse help her case. And Brian? There's something else. Clint Pena made bail. Brian went cold. Yesterday. His attorney argued he wasn't a flight risk given his military service and community ties. Judge set bail at $2 million. Someone paid it. Ooh, a shell company we're still tracing. But Brian, Agent Rowe told me about Clint's threats. You need to be careful. I will. Thanks for the heads up. After hanging up, Brian told Wade. Clint's out. Someone with deep pockets bailed him out. Barker? Probably. They want him on the street to either flee or cause problems. Brian checked his gun safe, confirming his pistol was loaded and accessible. He'd never been the type to carry, but circumstances had changed. We need to be ready. You think he'll come after you? I think a man who tortured his own grandson for profit isn't going to accept defeat gracefully. Wade nodded grimly. I'll upgrade security here. Cameras, better locks. And I'll keep Matt close. I should take Matt somewhere safe. Out of state, maybe. Where you stay and finish what you started. Matt's safe with me. You go find those last 3 families and end this. Wade, I'm a big boy, Tucker. I can handle Clint Pena if he shows up. You need to handle the rest. Closure matters, for you and for Matt. So go get it. Brian wanted to argue, but Wade was right. Running would just delay the inevitable. And those 3 families, they represented the unfinished work, the loose ends that would haunt him if left unresolved. Okay, but anything weird happens, anything at all, you call me and the FBI. Promise. Promise. Brian spent the afternoon with Matt, just being present. They played with action figures, read books, talked about nothing important. Normal father-son time, the kind Brian had taken for granted before all this. At dinner, Matt asked, when can we go home? Soon, buddy. Just a few more things to handle. Are you fighting the bad people? Brian paused, unsure how to answer. I'm making sure they can't hurt any more kids. That's good. You're like a superhero. No, sport. I'm just your dad. Same thing. Matt said it with such conviction that Brian almost believed it. That night, after Matt fell asleep, Brian planned his next move. The Arizona family, Glenn and Joe Green, had fled to Phoenix. Kenneth had tracked them to a rental house near the airport, positioning for a quick international flight if needed. Brian would leave in the morning. Quick trip, one day there and back. Wade would keep Matt safe. What would go wrong? Brian was in Arizona, meeting with the Greens, who turned out to be devastated and cooperative like the Brewers when Wade's call came. Brian, he's here. Clint's at my house. What? Brian was already running for his car. Are you okay? Is Matt safe? We're locked in the safe room. I saw him on the security cameras, tried the doors. When they wouldn't open, he tried breaking a window. That triggered the alarm, so he left. But Brian, he's not going away. I'm 2 hours from the airport, 3-hour flight, another hour home. Can you get to a different location? Already called Agent Rowe. She's sending someone to extract us and take us to a safe house. We'll be gone before you land. Good. Stay on the phone until the FBI arrives. Will do. And Brian? Hurry. Clint looked unhinged, like he's got nothing left to lose. Brian white-knuckled the steering wheel, pushing the rental car to dangerous speeds. Agent Rowe called as he was boarding the flight. Tucker, Wade and Matt are secure. We've got a bolo out for Clint Pena. He violated bail conditions by approaching your family. He's desperate. Walker's in custody, the network's exposed, his daughter's cooperating against him. He's got nothing, which makes him dangerous. Brian, come to the safe house when you land. Don't go home. Don't try to handle this yourself. Where's Lynn? Mother-in-law? Still in custody, cooperating. Why? Just wondering if Clint's completely alone or if he's got help. As far as we know, alone. His connections are distancing themselves from a scandal. He's toxic now. Good. The flight was agony. 3 hours of forced stillness while Brian's mind raced through scenarios. Clint wasn't a tactical genius, but he was trained, dangerous when cornered. And he made threats. Brian landed at 9 p.m., ignored Agent Rowe's instructions, and drove to the safe house. It was a nondescript motel in a commercial district, FBI agent stationed outside. Inside, Matt ran to him, and Brian held on too tight, feeling the boy's heartbeat against his chest. Mr. Wade protected me, Matt said. We hid in his special room until the FBI came. That's good, buddy. You were very brave. Wade looked exhausted, but unharmed. Agent Rowe wants to talk to you. She was in an adjacent room, reviewing security footage on a laptop. Tucker, glad you ignored my advice about coming here. Wouldn't be the first time. She replayed the footage from Wade's security system. It showed Clint approaching the house, trying doors, looking increasingly agitated. When a window broke, he fled on foot, disappearing into nearby trees. We've got units searching the neighborhood, Rose said. But it's been 8 hours. He could be anywhere. He'll come back, Brian said with certainty. This isn't about escape for him. It's about revenge. He blames me for destroying everything he built. Probably, which is why you're staying here until we catch him. No, excuse me. I'm not hiding while Clint's out there. He wants me. Let's give him a chance. But on my terms, with FBI backup. You want to use yourself as bait. I want to end this. Tonight, if possible. Before he hurts someone. Rowe considered. What are you proposing? I go home. Alone. Wade and Matt stay here. You put a surveillance team on my house. When Clint shows up, and he will, you take him down. That's risky. Everything about this has been risky. But it works. Clint's operating on emotion now, not strategy. He'll make mistakes. And if he doesn't, if he's smarter than we think and avoids the trap, then we try something else. But Rowe, you said it yourself, he's unhinged. People like that need closure, even if it's violent. I'm offering him that chance in a controlled situation. After a long pause, Agent Rowe nodded. I'll position teams around your house. Snipers on adjacent buildings, agents in unmarked vehicles. You were a wire. At the first sign of threat, we move in. Deal. Wade pulled Brian aside before he left. You sure about this? No. But Matt can't live in hiding. This needs to end. Just be careful. You're a better friend than I deserve, and Matt needs his father. I'll be back before you know it. Brian drove to his own house for the first time in weeks. It looked the same, suburban normal, lawn needing a trim, toys in the yard. But it felt different, tainted by everything that had happened. Inside, he could feel Cassie's absence. She'd taken clothes, toiletries, anything personal. The house was now just a structure, empty of the life it once held. Brian made coffee, sat in the living room, and waited. FBI agents confirmed positions via the earpiece they'd given him. "Tucker, we've got eyes on all approaches. Thermal imaging, night vision, the works. If Pena gets within 100 yards, we'll know." "Good. Let's hope he's not too cautious." Time crawled. Midnight passed. 1 a.m. Brian fought exhaustion, knowing he couldn't afford to drift off. At 2:14 a.m., the kitchen window shattered. Brian dove behind the couch as gunfire erupted. Shots tore through the living room, shattering the TV, punching holes in walls. FBI agents were shouting through the earpiece, but Brian couldn't hear them over the sound of his own heartbeat. More shots, then silence. Brian risked a look. Clint stood in the kitchen, reloading a handgun, face twisted in rage. "Tucker, you destroyed everything. My life's work, my family, my purpose. For what? Because you're too soft to discipline your own child?" "I didn't destroy anything," Brian called back. "You did. The moment you decided torturing children was acceptable. They needed to be strong. The world doesn't coddle weakness. I was making them into survivors. You were making them into victims." Clint fired again, forcing Brian back down. Where the hell was the FBI? "Where's my daughter?" Clint demanded. "Where's Cassie?" "Cooperating with federal prosecutors. She's going to testify against you." "Lies. She would never." "She already did. Gave them everything. You lost, Clint. It's over. It's not over until you're dead." Clint charged into the living room, gun raised. Brian rolled left, grabbed a table lamp, hurled it. The lamp struck Clint's gun arm, the weapon discharging wild. Then red laser dots appeared on Clint's chest, sniper sights. "Drop the weapon." FBI agents poured through the front door, rifles raised. "Get on the ground." For a moment, Brian thought Clint would comply. The old soldier, recognizing superior force, accepting defeat. But then Clint smiled, raised his gun toward the agents. The shots were near simultaneous. Clint jerked backward, crumpled, hit the ground hard. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading across Brian's hardwood floor. Agents rushed in, securing the weapon, checking for vitals. Agent Rowe appeared, looked down at Clint's body, then at Brian. "You okay?" Brian nodded, unable to find words. "Medics are en route, but he's gone. Suicide by cop, probably. Couldn't accept the consequences." She guided Brian outside, away from the scene. "You did good, Tucker. It's over now. Is it?" Walker's confessing to everything to negotiate a deal. Barker Strategic Ventures is under investigation by 3 federal agencies. The facilities are shut down. Children are being reunified with relatives or placed in trauma-informed care. The network's destroyed. And the parents? The clients? Civil suits are piling up. Some are facing criminal charges where we can prove they knew what was happening. Others are just living with public shame. Between your visits and the media coverage, they're pariahs in their communities. Good. You're not supposed to say that. I don't care. They deserve it. Brian looked at his house, the broken windows, the bullet holes. "I can't live here anymore." "Understand. Take your time figuring out next steps. But Tucker, you're done now, right? No more vigilante justice. No more hunting down bad guys." Brian thought about it. Matt was safe. The network was broken. The primary threats were neutralized. He'd accomplished what he set out to do. "Yeah," he said finally. "I'm done." Agent Rowe looked skeptical, but didn't push. "Get some rest. Come by the FBI office Monday to give a formal statement. Then go be a father to your son. That's the victory here, keeping him safe." Brian went back to the safe house as dawn broke. Wade and Matt were asleep in one of the rooms, exhaustion finally claiming them. Brian sat outside the door, listening to his son's steady breathing, feeling something like peace for the first time in weeks. It was over. Really, truly over. 3 months later, Brian and Matt moved to a different city. A fresh start, new house, new schools. Matt was in therapy twice a week, making slow but steady progress. The nightmares were less frequent. The fear was fading. Wade visited often, becoming a permanent fixture in their lives. Emily the lawyer helped Brian navigate the legal aftermath, testimony, depositions, interviews. The civil suits against Walker, the Pennis, and Barker Strategic Ventures were massive, likely to drag on for years. But the criminal cases were solid. Walker was facing 60 years. Lynn Payne took a plea deal. Cassie received a reduced sentence in exchange for her cooperation. 5 years with possibility of parole in 3. She wrote letters to Matt, apologizing, trying to explain, asking for forgiveness. Brian kept them unopened in a box. Someday, when Matt was older and ready, he could decide what to do with them. Barker Strategic Ventures imploded under the scandal. Their investors fled, their CEO resigned, and 3 board members faced criminal charges for knowing about the child welfare violations. The company filed for bankruptcy protection, assets seized to fund victim compensation. And the children, all 200-plus children who'd been through Walker's programs, were receiving specialized care. Brian had helped fund a treatment center specifically for them, using his portion of the civil settlements. It wasn't enough, could never be enough, but it was something. Brian himself struggled with what he'd become during those weeks. The man who'd broken into houses, coerced confessions, left Walker in a stress position. Was he a hero or a criminal? Justice seeker or vigilante? He didn't know. Maybe both. But he knew one thing. Matt was safe. 32 other children were safe. And the people who'd hurt them were facing consequences. That had to be enough. One evening, Matt looked up from his homework. They were practicing writing complete sentences and asked, "Dad, when I'm bigger, can I help other kids like you did?" Brian's throat tightened. "What do you mean? Kids who are scared and hurt. Can I help them not be scared anymore?" "You can, buddy. You absolutely can. But you know what the best way to help them is? How? By being happy yourself. By showing that it's possible to heal and move forward. By being kind and strong and everything you already are. That's how you help others. By being proof that things can get better." Matt considered this seriously, then nodded. "Okay, I can do that. I know you can." That night, after Matt fell asleep, Brian sat on the porch watching fireflies dance in the backyard. His phone buzzed. "Agent Rowe. Tucker. Thought you want to know. Last of the missing children was found. A boy named Kenneth, 12 years old. Barker had placed him with a foster family that turned out to be part of a recruitment pipeline. We recovered him, and he's safe now. That's good news." "It is. All the children are accounted for now. The network's completely dismantled. You did it, Brian. You started something that saved a lot of lives. I just protected my son. You did a lot more than that. And Tucker? Off the record, what you did, the home visits, the confrontations, I can't officially condone it. But I understand it. And I think those parents needed to feel what their children felt. Sometimes justice isn't about legal consequences. Sometimes it's about moral reckoning. Thanks, Roe. Take care of yourself and that boy. You both earned some peace." Brian ended the call and sat in the quiet of his new life, feeling the weight of the past months slowly lifting. It would never fully disappear. The scars ran too deep, but it was becoming manageable. Matt was safe. That's what mattered. Everything else was just details. Inside, Brian could hear his son talking in his sleep, one of the few happy dreams that had broken through the nightmares. Something about dinosaurs and ice cream. Normal kid stuff. Beautiful kid stuff. Brian smiled, finished his coffee, and went inside to sleep in the room next to his son's. He left both doors open. Matt slept better knowing his father was close. And Brian slept better knowing Matt was safe, healing, and slowly remembering how to just be a child. The monsters were gone. The future was theirs. And that finally was enough. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.